Walmart is closing all of its stores across the country due to concerns over protests and looting. Many Walmarts have barricaded their doors with things like vending machines, shopping carts, wooden pallets, even stacks of bottled water, apparently whatever has been available. But again, all Walmarts nationwide for the time being are being closed.
With the latest shutdown forcing non-essential businesses closed and strict capacity limits on grocery stores and essential retail, the city's fire marshal says health order enforcement teams are hitting the streets.
This week we will be going out and visiting all non-essential businesses to advise them on the new public health order, if they are open and not supposed to be, and only doing curbside. We will continue to do spot checks throughout the week on all business types to ensure compliance of the public health order.
Well, the latest health order just started yesterday. AFR says inspectors were out all weekend, in part making sure that businesses were enforcing the city's no hoarding rules and getting ready to enact special shopping hours for seniors and people who are at high risk.
You can't enforce your way out of COVID, but we know that it helps, and that's why we're going to keep doing it.
Now, overseeing much of the enforcement effort, that is the fire marshal. He says city staff will continue issuing notices of violation if at all necessary. They issued, or APD rather, issued 9 of those notices last month, but those notices do not carry any sort of court enforceable fine or punishment.
I think it's been a bit of a challenge, but I have to say, today, they get it. And we've been incredibly firm about if you've got 4 different rapid responses, positive case, we come in, we close for 24 hours, get everybody tested. If you get 4 of those in a 2-week period, you're closed for 2 weeks. And we need a reset in our state, and we are going to get it. This deadly virus doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't care who you are, where you live, your political affiliation. What happens around the country and what happens in the other states will find its way right back here. So basically,
Governor, we should mention you are also now part of the Biden-Harris transition team.
But if you don't have people who believe the virus is real, then you end up teeter-tottering between those 2 parameters. And we don't want to do that. What I need is a president who believes that public health efforts can and will work, who will model that behavior nationwide, who will work with each of the governors to bolster their responses, who will create regional systems that keep me, right, not having to fall apart when something goes on in Arizona and Texas and vice versa. So the Arizona and Texas get the supports that they need. That makes sense to me, and they're very clear. We have to have robust testing and contact tracing for another year, all the way through a vaccine distribution. I felt very optimistic, and every governor weighed in about needing a stimulus package, and this is an administration that is dedicated to that priority immediately.
Just starting on Monday, it's going to be like March all over again in New Mexico. We are going back to the tightest restrictions that we have experienced. People are asked to stay at home, though a lot of the places they could go are about to get shut down again anyway.
The other critical aspect is not allowing the virus to travel with individuals. We don't want it moving around. It is, quite frankly, everywhere now in the state of New Mexico. And so, beginning Monday, we are doing a reset or pausing for 2 weeks.
Essential businesses like grocery and big box stores can only operate at 25% capacity or no more than 75 customers in the store at one time, whichever is smaller. Churches will have to follow that same rule. Now we look at restaurants and breweries. On-site dining is again prohibited. Those businesses will be limited to takeout and delivery only. What the state considers close contact businesses like salons, gyms, barbershops, along with outdoor facilities like golf courses, tennis courts, zoos, and state parks, all of those are completely shut down. Now, this shutdown is going to be in place from Monday through the 30th. And yes, that is through the Thanksgiving holiday. After that point, each county will be designated as either green, yellow, or red based on caseloads and test positivity rates. That label will dictate if a county can begin to reopen. The governor says the vast majority of the spread is happening at family gatherings. And now the worry is families getting together for Thanksgiving. Of course, clothing and jewelry stores will have to stay closed until December 1st, which means no Black Friday or early holiday shopping crowds for them. Now, according to the state, COVID hospitalizations are up more than 200% in the past month, and deaths have more than doubled.
Brittany, the governor mentioned this growing problem yesterday. Our grocery stores getting shut down, just like this Walmart here off of Coors. They just shut down this week. And these type of closures, well, they're now happening all across the state. During a crisis, this is where many run to first.
We're still seeing some panic buying of things, which is totally unnecessary.
But now several grocery stores and major retailers are getting shut down across New Mexico.
That when all of the employees are infected with COVID, they cannot be open, which means we're losing access to critical services and supplies.
Take a look at this. 23 businesses across the state have been shut down. 3 have since been allowed to reopen. Nearly half of the closures are grocery stores or major retailers. This includes 2 Walmarts in Albuquerque, 1 in Santa Fe, a Santa Fe Target, and an Albertsons in Roswell, to name a few. So why are they closing? Too many COVID cases.
The reality is that we're seeing it everywhere.
Maddie Hayden with the New Mexico Environment Department says this issue is widespread. Businesses may have to shut down after 4 more rapid responses in 2 weeks. To give you some perspective, she says the week of September 21st as a whole, the state conducted 240 responses. The week of November 9th, it was more than 2,200. So while these closures are a temporary inconvenience for some, Hayden says it's a matter of life or death for others.
But it is absolutely essential that we take these actions right now to curb the massive spike in infections we're seeing.
The list of businesses that need to close for 2 weeks after 4 or more rapid response visits is growing. In southeast New Mexico, grocery stores in several communities had to close.
Before they thought, well, the virus, it's not going to affect me. But when it starts to affect their family, now they're starting to understand that it's real.
The New Mexico Health Department shut down 2 grocery stores in Roswell because of too many rapid responses because of COVID-19 exposures. In Carlsbad and Hobbs, they are down to 1 grocery store in each community after the other was closed for 2 weeks by the health department. Residents say this is causing some people to panic.
The governor put in a new edict. I knew things would be crazy, and I'm not crazy, but if everybody else is crazy, then you kind of have to react to that. And so I wanted to go pick up a few things just to make sure that I didn't have to go out this weekend or any other time. And I pulled into the parking lot at Walmart at 6:58. And I did not walk into the store till 8:10.
Michelle Martin said the lines this morning to get into Walmart stretched about a half a mile in Roswell. Now people are saying when the store closes for 2 weeks, it greatly affects families and their communities.
I already had my business closed. We thought we could make it because he has his job. We'll be okay. And now with this happening, we don't know how we're going to make ends meet.
Just to give you an idea how bad the spread is in southeast New Mexico, we looked into the cases from Wednesday. Like Curry County, who reported 89 cases yesterday. 89 cases in Curry County is like having 2,700 cases in a single day in Bernalillo County. In Chaves County, 191 cases would be like having 1,900 cases in Bernalillo County.
You go in, you see, 1 or 2 people wearing a mask, and nobody's wearing a mask. So it's like, I don't understand why people are downplaying this virus, because it's serious.
A zip code in Roswell ranked second highest in the state for infections in a single day.
I mean, you have the elderly waiting in line, standing out there. I mean, luckily it was a nice cool morning, but you had people in wheelchairs doing the same thing, or people with their children. And this is the mass hysteria that's being created by this.
Carlsbad has only 3 main grocery stores and a Walmart, much fewer than larger cities like Albuquerque or Santa Fe. Representative Catherine Brown worries with those closures, people could have a hard time buying groceries or getting prescriptions filled.
When you have to wait hours and hours in line at the 2 stores that are still open, some people, they just can't do it. Physically, they can't do it. I think mentally it's taking a toll on people. It feels like we're living in Russia right now.
Representative Brown is calling on the state to work with stores to develop a reopening plan and re-examine its rapid response gating criteria.
Lots of people are out and about in downtown Riverside, enjoying a night outside at restaurants and shops with their families. On the eve of a statewide 10 p.m. curfew put in place to slow the once again rapid spread of coronavirus.
It's not going to do any good.
Malls, shopping centers, small businesses, and office buildings around the state are closed for at least the next 2 weeks. And restaurants, of course, are also impacted.
just really glad this was resolved before Thanksgiving. Very, very thankful for that.
Albertsons in Roswell and Carlsbad were allowed to reopen this morning. Each store was cleaned and sanitized. All employees had negative COVID tests, and they completed training under the new deal with the New Mexico Health Department. Shoppers were thrilled to have their community stores back and to get their last-minute supplies for Thanksgiving.
Well, the state has temporarily shut down 3 New Mexico businesses after their workers tested positive for COVID. Chaparral Materials in Santa Fe has had 5 rapid responses from the state in the last 2 weeks. Under the public health order, a business can be forced to close for 2 weeks after 4 rapid responses. Deming Manufactured Homes also had to shut down after 5, as did Stampede Meat in Santa Teresa, which had 11 rapid responses during a 14-day period.
The lines, empty shelves, all a familiar sight from March, reappearing right here at home now too. So Brandon Evans.
From Walmart to Sam's Club to Smith's. Sky 7 showing similar scenes at grocery stores all around Albuquerque, the eve of Thanksgiving.
I'm seeing longer lines.
I've just kind of been avoid going there, the lines.
Shoppers say lines are getting longer at stores with 25% maximum occupancy rules. And many are changing the way they shop to avoid waiting.
This time around, I bought a few extra things just to prevent me from coming back.
Lawrence Cordova says he doesn't overbuy, but he doesn't want to have to make another trip. Others are taking a resourceful approach.
But we're really working on making things stretch before we have to go again so that we don't have to do multiple trips.
13 stores across the state are closed due to 4 or more rapid responses, meaning within 2 weeks, 4 or more times an employee at the store tested positive for COVID.
The panic buying of toilet paper actually caused a shortage of toilet paper.
And that's something she says they're prepared for now.
So we have a better idea of the things that move quicker than others, and we can order accordingly. We're still seeing some panic buying of things, which is totally unnecessary.
But overall, she says shoppers are being smarter.
People are doing a better job of keeping their pantries stocked.
She says the distributors have adjusted to people buying in bulk.
Hard to find a single roll of paper towel on the shelf. So you see 6-packs, 12-packs, things of that nature.
And this shutdown doesn't impact their out-of-state distributors like before.
I think the biggest difference between March and now is that we're just dealing with now a New Mexico shutdown. We're not.
The governor has tweaked the language in the health order this time around, leaving gray areas about which retailers can stay open. Today, we found Macy's and Dillard's are open. Under previous order, those department stores did not count as essential because they could not qualify as a grocery or hardware store like Target and Walmart. But in this latest order, essential businesses have been redefined. They now include, quote, big box stores and other large retailers. We asked the health department what qualifies as a large retailer. They told us, quote, a large retailer is a large retailer, and suggested that you know one when you see one. They stressed the intent of the order is to ensure access to vital supplies and to keep occupancy inside businesses to a minimum.
It's your mental health that you got to worry about. The governor is just, I think it's more political.
I don't think the coronavirus is hiding in a tree. Wait until midnight or 10 o'clock.
The curfew only applies to outdoor dining. Restaurants can still offer to-go orders after 10. The curfew does not apply to grocery stores or other essential business, but does ban non-essential work and gatherings from 10 p.m. until 5 a.m. However, sheriffs in all 5 Southern California counties say they will not enforce this curfew.
Hey, Allison, so this is the DCU Center, but now it's UMass Memorial's field hospital site. And starting December 6th, they are going to start bringing in overflow patients from around the state. Right here, patients are going to come around the corner here down this road and be brought right through into this garage. So this has basically gone from being a landing spot, a garage, and turned into a makeshift emergency room. Many of the patients here are people who are going to end up needing significant oxygen support. So around this corner here, I want to show you something. Right here, you can see a large oxygen tank that the team has drilled right into the side of this convention center. That has frozen liquid oxygen in it that will be available to patients starting on December 6th. People here are working 12-hour shifts, And many of the healthcare workers feel more prepared than they did during the first wave, but they're also starting to feel exhausted. Dixon's team says that on December 6th, they'll be ready to have about 25 patients here, but they are going to be staffing up and recruiting nurses and team members from around the country so that eventually they'll have capacity for up to 200.
Allison, we're here inside the event center in Bismarck, North Dakota, where a massive drive-through testing site just wrapped up. They had about 1,000 tests here. It took them about 2-3 hours to go through all of them. Now, the people who took those tests will have to wait 5 to 7 days to get the results. The public health director here says that's because the labs here in the state are simply overwhelmed, so they need to send these tests out of state in order to get those results. But Allison, this is just one of the many signs that the situation is growing more dire here in North Dakota. It is a state that has seen a dramatic rise in cases, a dramatic rise in deaths as well. And today is the first day that several Air Force nurses, dozens of them, will be reporting to for duty at several hospitals throughout the state. They'll be working in COVID ICUs. Many of these are critical care nurses that are being brought on to relieve some of the pressure on these hospital systems who are dealing with massive staff shortages here.
We said it yesterday, we will say it today, and we will probably say it again tomorrow. The coronavirus pandemic is spreading in nearly every single state in the U.S. And if we keep going at this rate, we could hit 20 million coronavirus cases in the U.S. by Inauguration Day. That's according to a forecast from Washington University in St. Louis. That is January 20th, less than 2 months from now.
There are now more than 3.6 million coronavirus cases nationwide, and around 140,000 people have died.
The new analysis from researchers at MIT and the University of Oxford call the 6-foot social distancing rule outdated science. In the just published report, evidence suggests the coronavirus could travel up to 26 feet in the air, with viral spread amplified by someone coughing or shouting. Several other factors like ventilation, room occupancy, and exposure time all play a role.
One of the biggest risk factors we have for this virus is time spent indoors. In fact, nearly all of the outbreaks of 3 or more people occurred indoors.
Multiple studies show when we talk, cough, or breathe, a stream of 2 types of droplets are sent through the air, respiratory and aerosol particles. Researchers say the smaller, lighter aerosol particles can linger in the air for hours, traveling much farther. The warning comes just as some students across the country return to the classroom and where mask mandates and ventilation systems are being scrutinized. With no one-size-fits-all rule, the new report suggests 6 feet apart should be a starting point, but increasing your social distance isn't always an option.
The general public should not be scared about this, but they should certainly be aware. The more you can separate from other people, the less likely you are to get coronavirus.
And for those returning to the office, no matter how far spread apart you are, experts agree wearing a mask gives you an extra layer of protection, minimizing your risk even when few others are around.
Tonight, Americans encouraged to take a step back as our nation moves forward.
Costco's new policy is putting them in a bind. Costco is limited to 75 customers under the new state health order, so it is only allowing 1 person from a household inside at a time. Today we saw security turn away couples and mothers with children at the store off Renaissance Boulevard in Albuquerque. A single mother says she drove from Espanola to get food today and had to convince the store to let her shop with her 2 sons. Costco has had to set up 2 lines you have to go through to get inside. The wait time around 11 this morning was an hour and a half.
We are at an empty Target on Thanksgiving night. You can imagine how full this parking lot would be if not for the circumstances. Stores across the city staying closed tonight. Target won't open up until 7 tomorrow morning. The company has a social distancing game plan, but big businesses are not the only ones with safety strategies.
Here you'll find some self-care items, as self-care is very important this year.
Deshere Whitaker and her Love Peridot boutique face a challenge. They need customers this holiday season.
Everything is at stake. If you don't shop small, our families are at stake.
And they also need to limit customers. no more than 3 in the store at a time. For Black Friday, she encourages shoppers to call ahead or order online for a curbside pickup here in the South Loop. Do you think you will have to tell people to wait outside?
We may, because, it's Black Friday.
In Glenview, Apt Electronics plans to check customers' temperatures tomorrow, and they've designated parking spaces for pickup orders.
I don't think we'll have to tell people to wait outside, but that's a potential, and we've never had to do that ever in the past.
Apt doesn't plan to change their hours, but some stores are opening bright and early. Woodfield and Orland Square malls will both open at 6, while Chicago Ridge and South Lake will open at 7 tomorrow. Best Buy will open at 5, and the company says they will have staff directing customers and managing lines.
The signs say it all. A Natick coffee shop closing for good. A Saugus diner shuttered after 7 decades. The Four Seasons Hotel in Boston announcing it's cutting about half its staff. And here on Massachusetts Avenue, a closeout sale at what might be the quirkiest store in the city.
My mom and dad started in the 40s.
Dorothy's costume boutique has stood the test of time.
It's just not right. It just stinks.
It took the coronavirus to take this institution down.
And I'm looking at the forecast for sales going forward, and I don't see anything. There's no ball games and no concerts, no parades, no festivals. No, nothing.
This as Massachusetts reports the first jump in unemployment claims in several weeks. 44,732 people in the Bay State filing for unemployment insurance last week. Nationwide, the number is 1.5 million. And Boston College economist Robert Murphy says it's the small businesses that are the engines of job creation.
Now, there have been about a dozen major retail bankruptcies so far this year. Like Modell's and Pier 1, though, they were just gearing up to start closing their stores, doing those liquidation sales when all stores had to close because of COVID-19. Then you've got others like JCPenney. Tuesday morning, they filed for bankruptcy while stores were still closed, so that when they could reopen doors, many were doing so or will do so with going out of business sales to liquidate the inventory and pay creditors. Now, other retailers not filing for bankruptcy will close stores in the normal course of business, too, to prune overstored fleets. But this year, store closures are expected to swell to record highs as e-commerce has really exploded during the pandemic and fewer stores are really needed.
I'm wondering, did you forecast before the pandemic that 25,000 stores would eventually close and the pandemic is just sort of precipitating that pain, or do you think that there are more store closures because of the pandemic?
There are definitely more store closures because of the pandemic.
But it's already too late for thousands of stores that were struggling long before the pandemic hit, such as Victoria's Secret, which is closing 250 locations, a quarter of its stores, and Pier 1 closing all of its 500 stores. And it doesn't stop there. A stunning Business Insider report is listing many other stores are shutting for good. JCPenney closing 242 locations, 1/3 of its stores. GameStop closing 350 stores. Papyrus shutting all 250 stores. Forever 21, 178 store closings. Bose, all 125 stores. And AC Moore, all 145 stores.
It's already shaping up to be a rough year for many retailers, including Papyrus here on Ventura Boulevard. 1 month after the holiday shopping season, several chain stores are calling it quits.
The most difficult of decisions for a Vero Beach business owner. After more than 7 decades, a local home decor store is closing its doors.
It survived much, but not the painful reality of the COVID-19 crisis. And
this is where we are, at least now. Among the retailers that have closed, most of these are at least 2 weeks. Names like Apple, Nike, Under Armour, Lululemon, REI, Columbia, Patagonia, Abercrombie, Aritzia, Levi Strauss, Urban Outfitters. Plus, you've got smaller names closing up their stores like Warby Parker, Everlane, Allbirds, Glossier, and Away. The good news for employees is these companies are planning to pay employees during the time that the stores are closed, and online operations are still up and running for the most part, at least for now. Retail Federation and Retail Industry Leaders Association are joining together, putting out statements telling consumers, quote, retailers, particularly grocery providers, are working with manufacturers, suppliers, and government agencies to make certain essential products and services remaining readily available to customers. The groups are urging consumers not to hoard, saying, quote, hoarding products only contributes to the fear surrounding the virus, and any hoarder acting with malicious intent to drive up prices on a secondary market should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
All right, Nike and Apple among the big names closing retail locations in the United States. Courtney Reagan joins us. She's got more on this front right now. And Courtney, you think this is just a precursor of what's to come?
I really do, Becky. I feel like pretty soon we won't need these lists and we're just going to say everybody's closed. They're going to continue to change these lists, but at least this is what we have now when we're living in this new normal in a country where officials are asking us to limit our gatherings. We're encouraging social distancing, imposing curfews, closing bars and restaurants. So among the retailers that we know right now are closed, mostly here for about 2 weeks, include names like Apple, Nike that you mentioned, but also Under Armour, Lululemon, Columbia, Patagonia, Abercrombie & Fitch, and Urban Outfitters, plus a number of smaller names like Warby Parker, Everlane, Allbirds, Glossier, Away. And again, that's not a completely exhaustive list. The good news is for most of these store employees, they will continue to be paid while the stores are closed. Others are shortening hours. Now, these are mainly grocery stores, which makes sense. They have to have time to be able to restock their shelves and clean their stores. So these names with shortened hours include Walmart and its neighborhood markets and Sam's Club's locations, Publix, Stop & Shop, Natural Grocers, Wegmans, Trader Joe's, and some Kroger stores. Gap, Old Navy, Banana Republic, those are also operating under reduced hours. B. Riley FBR analyst Susan Anderson estimates that annual earnings will fall an average of 18% for the specialty retailers in her coverage as a result of these closures. Piper Sandler analyst Aaron Murphy estimates Nike and Lululemon's annual earnings will fall 2% and 3% respectively. So that's holding up a little better from the closures, while Under Armour's earnings could take a 16% hit. But the big retail lobby groups, the National Retail Federation and the Retail Industry Leaders Association, are telling consumers, quote, retailers, particularly grocery providers, are working with manufacturers, suppliers, and government agencies to make certain essential products and services remain readily available to customers. The groups are also urging customers not to hoard, saying, quote, hoarding products only contributes to the fear surrounding the virus, and any hoarder acting with malicious intent to drive up prices on a secondary market should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And that is largely, of course, referring to folks that are buying large quantities of things that they are not using personally and then trying to resell. Yes, we're seeing empty shelves, but that's because people are buying much more than they normally are, and stores are truly restocking overnight and every day as much as they possibly can.
Last hour as well, as you go down the supply chain, meaning not just the people that are working in retail, and I've been speaking with CEOs all weekend, and one of their real concerns, without panicking people, is that 2 and 3 weeks from now, getting employees to a factory, for example, getting an employee to a warehouse, getting an employee may actually become more complicated.
Right, exactly. And so we've been watching what's happening in China to see how that country has sort of rescaled up the workers that are going into the manufacturing or the distribution center, and to see what's happening, because of course we know that they are, I guess you could say, ahead of us with what's going on in the virus outbreak. And so we know that the factories came back online maybe 25% at first, maybe 50% at first, as employees were getting healthy again.
Last night was the first night of the new curfew for Southern California counties, but protesters in Orange County are sending a message to Governor Newsom saying they won't follow the new guidelines.
Patriots are uniting, and we're going to stand and we're going to fight for our rights. We are Americans, and they will never take our rights away.
Dozens gathered near the Huntington Beach Pier in protest of that 10 p.m. curfew, most of them not wearing masks. A similar rally was also held in San Clemente, where protesters could be seen burning masks.
Ryan, as a matter of fact, they're wrapping up a mass detention right here in Stevenson Alley, south of Market, between 5th and 6th Streets. San Francisco police say they just detained 45 people who were demonstrating in the city tonight. Police rounded them up in the 10 o'clock hour, so not too long ago.
While Governor Gavin Newsom is catching some heat for attending a birthday party at this famed Napa Valley restaurant, a type of gathering his own administration has warned against.
Yeah, here outside the French Laundry. It's not what the governor had for dinner that has upset people, and it's really not even the letter of the law where there might be a transgression. It is more the spirit of the guidance.
3.7%, 14-day positivity rate may sound great compared to most other states right now.
Governor Gavin Newsom speaking early this week after dinner last week at the famed French Laundry in Yountville. We're told it was a 12-person affair seated outside in accordance with the restaurant's normal policies, and there is no indication that any specific county rules were broken. However, there is another problem.
And we're starting to see people, again, take down their guard, take off their masks, begin to mix outside their households.
In that respect, the governor certainly violated the spirit of the state's guidance on gatherings, as the dinner party did include multiple households, like the French Laundry cuisine grown in the field across the street from the restaurant. Claims of hypocrisy immediately went sprouting online.
I definitely think our leaders of the state and of the country need to set a good example. So is it setting a good example to do exactly what you're telling the rest of us not to do? No.
Kelly Vandenacker had lunch outside today, not at the French Laundry. She thinks the optics of the governor's meal are bad, but she was quick to add,
am I taking a risk by eating out too? Yeah, and I'm okay with that.
The governor issued a statement today saying he could have modeled better behavior. His chief health officer was asked about all this afternoon.
I'll point you back to the governor's statement and his team in the governor's office for further follow-up. But certainly, as we look at surging cases, we have the guidance and the tips for a reason.
Just moments ago, the state announced details on a color-coded tier system, which will determine what businesses can begin to reopen moving forward. It will be broken down into 3 categories based on each county's gating criteria: green, yellow, or red. According to the DOH's website, as of today, every county in the state except for Los Alamos County falls into the red category, and here is what that means. Red counties must follow many of the restrictions that are in place right now, like limiting essential retailers to 25% capacity or 75 total customers, whichever is fewer, and prohibiting indoor dining. However, patio dining will be brought back at 25% capacity. Close contact businesses and outdoor rec facilities can also operate at 25%. We have got the full framework, including details on further reopenings for green and yellow counties, posted at alwaysonkrqe.com. The new color-coded system goes into effect next Wednesday, and maps will be updated each Wednesday.
Today I've come to talk about our nation's efforts to address this vital issue to the health and the safety of all Americans. I'm here to discuss our strategy to prevent and protect the American people from a possible outbreak. First, we must detect outbreaks that occur anywhere in the world. Second, we must protect the American people by stockpiling vaccines and antiviral drugs and improve our ability to rapidly produce new vaccines against a pandemic strain. A pandemic is unlike other natural disasters. Outbreaks can happen simultaneously in hundreds or even thousands of locations at the same time. And unlike storms or floods, which strike in an instant and then recede, a pandemic can continue spreading destruction in repeated waves that can last for a year or more. And one day, many lives could be needlessly lost because we failed to act today.